Good afternoon, everyone. Going to talk to you about Pursuit Minerals and our portfolio of advanced vanadium projects in Scandinavia. And we as a company made a decision about a year ago to get involved in vanadium, and the focus for us in Scandinavia was because we recognised an opportunity to go into a part of the world that has a lot of existing infrastructure, but particularly cheap power, which is important from a processing of vanadium perspective. And we could go in there and we could acquire existing historical resources. We just went and pegged open ground, and these are projects that had a fair amount of work on them historically back through the 1970s, 80s and into the 1990s. And so very quickly we built a portfolio of quality projects, and we're now levering off a lot of the existing historical data to progress those projects through scoping studies and into pre-fees, and then further on from there. And so I guess a lot of the drivers behind what's happened with the vanadium price in the last year, and it's been the best performing metal, it's absolutely gone ballistic, and even in the last month I think it's gone up by about 50%. So, there's a lot of positivity around the vanadium market at the moment. And a lot of that has been driven by structural changes within the steel industry in China. They're now required their rebar standards have increased, so they need quite a lot more vanadium to go into producing better quality steel. And that was a response to some natural disasters and building failures and things. So that has driven the market a lot. But on top of that, you've got the growth in energy storage. And this is a revolution that's happening at the moment, and we want to participate in that. I mean, our goal is to give our shareholders the upside that comes when there's fundamental changes to the world economy, and that's what we're seeing at the moment in terms of energy. So as a lot of people at this conference have spoken about, is the change over to renewable energy, and if that's going to happen, there's got to be a viable storage for that. So large-scale energy storage is needed to stabilise electrical grids and then provide that energy back to the grid when it's needed. And so the vanadium redox flow battery is the best way of doing that. So this is a type of battery. It's based upon a vanadium electrolyte. It stores energy, and it's best suited to long-term energy storage. And so it has a much longer-term. The batteries last for a lot longer than lithium-ion batteries, typically up to about 20 years or so, and then when they need to be replaced, you just basically replace the electrolyte. So as a long-term energy storage, they are the best. There's basically no contest between the vanadium flow redox batteries and lithium-ion for long-term energy storage. And so at the moment, it's about a $250 million industry. Over the next 4 years, that's predicted to increase up to about $1 billion, and it's growing at a compound annual growth rate of about 60%. So it's absolutely going ballistic at the moment. And that is driving a deficit that's going to come in vanadium production. And if you look around the world at the moment, if you sort of compare where we were 5 or 6 years ago with lithium, where we saw that lithium was really starting to move, there was its consumption was predicted to double and triple, but you could sort of look around the world and you can go, yeah, I can see where it's going to come from. There are a number of projects out there, and you could have a reasonable idea of where that was going to come from. But if you do that in vanadium at the moment, and you said, okay, if we double or triple the consumption of vanadium, where is that going to come from? It's not as clear. In terms of the projects that are available to go into production. And then on top of that, you've got this demand that's growing in the energy space as well. So, and that I think is what's really propelling the price. And we've seen that rapidly increase. And even this graph, this was put together last week. It's already out of date. It's now gone to nearly 30. So at the moment, it's just going into orbit in terms of the price. And I think that is because there is some uncertainty around where the supply is going to come from. And there's been obviously stocking going on in advance of these changes to the steel standards in China, which I understand kick in next month. So in terms of being in the right commodity, we're definitely in the right commodity at the moment. There's a lot of interest in this. So in terms of our projects, we have them in northern Finland and northern Sweden. And these, as I mentioned, these are projects where we were just able to go and acquire There was stuff that the geological surveys in Finland and Sweden had actually done work on back in the 70s and 80s, and we acquired projects with historical resources. Particularly in Finland, a lot of that data still exists. So for example, on our Kortelainen project, which is the most advanced that we have, we've been able to use 25 historical drill holes. We've been able to go and resample those, and we've put together a JORC exploration target. And that is a substantial target. I mean, it's 100 million tonnes of mineralisation there, and it contains between 4 and 10.5 million tonnes of magnetite, which in turn grades between 2 and 2.3% vanadium pentoxide. And so that's a substantial body of mineralisation, and we've been able to do that just in a few months using the historical data. And now what we've done is we've gone and sampled a lot of those drill holes, we've submitted them for modern assays, and we'll be able to use that information, which will come in over the next 4 to 6 weeks, to convert that exploration target into an inferred resource. And once that is done, we can then do a scoping study, and that gets the project to a pre-feasibility study decision point. So this is the resources in various components. The Zone D in itself is about 40 million tonnes. So, there's enough material in there potentially for, a 10 to 15 year operation. And this project is not about going out and drilling more tonnes of mineralisation. We have sufficient. It's about increasing the confidence in that mineralisation and lifting it from an exploration target to inferred, to indicated, doing a scoping study, and then getting it into a pre-feasibility. So this gives you a bit of an example or an idea of where the Kortelainen project sits in the overall universe of vanadium projects. And so vanadium, a lot of projects produce vanadium into a magnetite concentrate. So the key thing is how much vanadium actually goes into the magnetite concentrate, because getting the vanadium out of the magnetite concentrate is the expensive part of the process. So it's really important to have a high-grade vanadium in the magnetite concentrate. The best project is Maracás in Brazil. It's owned by Largo Resources. They produce a 3% vanadium magnetite concentrate, so that's the highest grade. The next is about 2.3, which is Glencore's Rovan operation in South Africa. And we're going to sit around about 2 to 2.3. So we're right up there in terms of global vanadium projects that are producing vanadium out of magnetite concentrates. It's in the top echelon of projects. The lead project that we have in Sweden, Arajoki, again, this was drilled back in the 1980s by the Geological Survey of Sweden. 2 drill holes exist. We went and assayed them, and we've got some fantastic intersections, 180 metres of mineralisation, and the basal part of that mineralisation is very high grade, 10 to 16 metres thick, again, producing a magnetite concentrate of over 2%. At surface, we also have rock chips that are going over 1% as well. So very high-grade mineralisation at surface, and the mineralisation is associated with a magnetic anomaly which extends for about 3.5 kilometres to the northeast, which is not drilled. And now, so our plan is in the next few weeks, go and drill this to be able to define an inferred resource, and from that do a scoping study, look at the economics of it. And so by early next year, in first quarter, we'll have 2 projects, Arajoki in Sweden and Kortelainen in Finland, with scoping studies and scoping study level economic models done, and both of them will then be at decision points around pre-feasibility studies. And we're very positive about these projects. If you sort of compare us to our peers, the advantages of being in Scandinavia, as opposed to, say, where I'm from, Australia, is we have access to cheap power, which is very important. Power is the largest single component of your operating cost. Our power costs in Sweden and Finland are about 1/3 of what they are in Australia, so that's very important. And we have fresh mineralisation. There's no weathering here, so it's very simple metallurgy. We go straight into fresh magnetite. So we're able to have a very simple processing stream. So quality projects in the world's best mining location, which is Finland, consistently rated by the Fraser Institute as the #1 mining destination in the world. Just to finish off, for us as a company, we're listed on the ASX. We've got 81 million shares on issue, so pretty tight capital structure, a market capitalisation of around 4 million, and our largest shareholder is the Australian subsidiary of Teck. So we believe we're in the right commodity in terms of vanadium at the right place in Scandinavia with all the access to infrastructure and very low sovereign risk, and at the right time. We've got vanadium demand is going to forecast to grow very strongly, and we have a substantial exploration target which is quickly going to be converted into an inferred resource. So we're able to very quickly and efficiently generate our projects and advance them, utilising all the historical data that we have and the historical drilling. And over the course of the next 12 months, we'll have very strong news flow, and I hope to be back here in a year's time reporting on the successful outcome of our feasibility studies. So thank you very much.